Everything is networking. Networking would be like 70% and the application around it would be like 30%. Making sure people know your skills and your worth, someone to advocate for you. The most important thing is to have a well-rounded application. Actually was invited to 9 university programs. Academics programs,
Great.
yeah. I actually have 13 published papers and one that I just submitted. Just take one step at a time. I was like touristing in the botanical gardens of Singapore. And then one lady asked me to take a picture of her. 3 years from that, I'm still collaborating with this doctor.
Wow.
I decided that I wanted to do that for my career. I wanted to be a scientist and help develop solutions for the world. That confidence of telling your patient that you were given him or her the best opportunities in the world. You kind of have to decide what your priorities are.
Hey guys, welcome to one more episode of MetaCast, the podcast of the Meta-Analysis Academy, with a very special guest today, Isabelle Miyawaki. Dr. Isabelle Miyawaki. She just graduated medical school and she's applying for residency in the US, and she has an amazing application, multiple interviews. We're recording this right in the middle of interview season. So she's going to walk us through how to build a successful, a very robust application for residency in the United States. Isabelle, it's such an honor to welcome you here. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you, Henderson. This is such an honor to be here. I've been listening to the episodes of the MetaCast, and oh my gosh, such amazing people have come here, so I'm truly honored to be a part of the episode.
Amazing, such as yourself. If you're listening for the first time, in MetaCast, we share success stories in medical and healthcare careers. We talk about medical students, residents, doctors, and other professionals who've done extraordinarily well for their stage of training. And before I get into introducing Isabelle and asking her questions, just a reminder, MetaCast and the Meta-Analysis Academy are not affiliated with the institutions where we work or that we mention in this program. Opinions are exclusively our own. And if you haven't joined the Meta-Analysis Academy yet, make sure to click the link below and join our wait list. Isabelle is a former student. She's actually a pioneer, one of the first classes, and you're going to see the impact that it's had on her career. So Isabelle, let's start with an introduction. Where are you from? A little bit about your background, just like where you grew up and why you decided to go to medical school, and just a little bit about the beginnings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Isabelle, as Anderson said. I was born and raised in Curitiba, Brazil, which is a city in the south of Brazil for those who are not familiar. I did my medical school in the Federal University of Paraná, Universidade Federal do Paraná. And I actually choose to do medicine because I've always loved science, and I actually wanted to be a scientist. So when I was in high school, I was very fortunate to to have the opportunity of developing a small science project. And actually, I presented it nationally and internationally as well. So I had the opportunity of going to the International Conference of Young Scientists in Germany.
Even before medical school?
Yeah, when I was 15 in my second year of high school.
Cool.
Yeah, that was amazing. And it honestly was a life-changing experience because my project, it was such a small project, and it was basically a microbiology project of evaluating the antifungal effects of some Brazilian plants. And I presented it in Germany, and I remember walking into a room full of young people. It was like from 14 to 18 years. So like teenagers, and everyone was presenting their posters, and everyone was so passionate about solving real life problems, and everyone was from a different reality, different countries. And I remember feeling like I was at home with so many brilliant minds. And I decided that I wanted to do that for my career. I wanted to be a scientist and help develop solutions for the world.
Nice.
And that's actually why I decided to do medicine, because I felt like it was the perfect combination between scientific inquiry, humanism, and yeah.
That's pretty cool. And you've now applying for residency in the United States, as I mentioned, and we're going to get right into the topic of like building a really strong application. It's a huge interest to the audience. But tell me a little bit about your reasons for, and at what point you decided in medical school that you wanted to pursue this international career in the U.S.
Yes, absolutely. So since I've always loved research, once I entered medical school, I wanted to get involved with research as soon as possible. However, we do know how is the research scenario in Brazil. Sometimes most times it's very slow, and funding and grants are really hard to get, especially when you are a first year, second year medical student. So I was, to be honestly, pretty disappointed with the opportunities, and I really tried to get involved with multiple projects, but I thought that none of them was actually doing a huge impact. So I started looking for opportunities of doing something outside of the country, especially the United States, where I know there's the largest amounts of grants in the world for research. And then actually I saw your course. It was the first, it was just the beginning of the Meta-Analysis Academy. It didn't even have this name. Yeah. And at first I was a little bit skeptical, like, I don't know if by doing this course, I will be able to do systematic reviews and meta-analysis. For me, that was really like something that seemed very hard to do. But like with your course was very almost life-changing as well. So I've learned from scratch to do systematic reviews, meta-analysis, and one of the best parts, besides the huge learning that I had, was to connect with amazing people. So not only mentors from very nice, very amazing institutions in the U.S., but also friends. Also Isabelle, who was in this podcast, she's now a person that I admire her so much as a person, and also I consider her such a great friend. It was amazing. And then with your course, it opened so many opportunities through that. And I consider that I'm where I am right now because of your course. I'm very thankful.
That means a lot to me. And you're one of the pioneer students, and to see where you've come, how far you've gone in your career is very rewarding. It means a lot to me. And it's kind of like seeing the long-term effects, because the Meta-Analysis Academy is still very new. I've been teaching, just so the audience knows, I've been teaching this for about 10 years, but with the structure of the Meta-Analysis Academy, only about 3 years. So, and Isabelle is from one of the first or second cohort. And now, 3 years later, all these great things that she's going to share here, both the networking and the publications. But I want to get right into this topic of building a really successful application. So, let's give the audience an overview of where you stand right now. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you to recite your rank order list over here, but do tell the audience on like the number of interviews overall that you've received so far in this cycle. We're recording this in December, so it's right in the middle of interview season.
Yeah, sure. So I was actually really surprised by the number of interviews that I got. So as I think Anderson mentioned, that I just graduated. So I graduated in August, and right now we are in December. So I did not do any research fellow or anything after my medical school in terms in the U.S. And I actually was invited to 9 university programs.
Academics programs.
Great. Yeah, sorry. And 3 community university affiliated
That's awesome.
programs.
That's absolutely awesome. 12 interviews in this day and age. It's just unbelievable. And these are really great programs, by the way. The academic programs where Isabelle is interviewing are really phenomenal programs. I'm going to give folks a take-home message right away, because I like to be very objective. You're going to listen from Isabelle what she did to get such a high number of interviews and a really successful match in a few months. But the take-home message, one of them at least, is that you have to build a very well-balanced application, not just really high scores and then weak something else, or just not like 20 papers but a low score, and having a balanced application that's above average or really awesome, but in multiple components, in all the different components of the applications, that's what's really going to stand out. So I'm going to ask you, Isabelle, overall, one by one, about the components of rotations and scores in general terms. Of course, you don't have to share your score. And then research, of course, another important component, and networking, like all the different things that will ultimately, at interviews, because you're right in the middle of that. So let's start with the rotations or like U.S. clinical experience. You didn't do any research fellowship, as you said. You graduated, you went straight into the application season. But what about rotations? When did you do your observerships or clerkship? Where did you do these?
Yes, absolutely. So as you said, Henderson, I think the most important thing that I noticed during the application season is to have a well-rounded application, so everything in place. And then after that, networking plays a huge part as well. So about clinical rotations, I did my first clinical rotation in 2023 at Mayo Clinic, Arizona. And actually, the networking that I did in your course, thanks to your course, made me be able actually to present in 2 international conferences. So I went to the Ask Asia in Singapore in 2023.
European Society of Cardiology.
European Society in 2022. And then right after that, I went to the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium.
That's like the largest breast cancer conference in the world.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. During that, at the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium, I met in person my mentor, and I asked him for an opportunity to do a rotation.
That's Felipe, right?
Yeah, Felipe.
I actually want to mention him because he's a superstar, incredible guy. Was very important, very helpful early on to the first batch of the students from the Meta-Analysis Academy, like Isabele, and he was just a giant, And so we're not too close, but I cannot speak highly enough of Dr. Battalini. So
yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
And I got to meet him, and then asked for an opportunity. And then in 2023, I did my first rotation with him for 5 weeks, and that's when I truly decided that I wanted to do my residency training.
You were 4th year then, right?
Yeah, I was
4th
year. Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually that's when it clicked for me too. I was a 5th year, and I went to Miami in my case, and I spent 2 months there doing observerships. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And you went to Mayo, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a whole new world. It's like it's like the U.S. is a step up from like Brazil, where we're from, but then like Mayo Clinic is a step up from the U.S.
Yeah,
They're
it was
really
unbelievable. Yeah. And I was so impressed about how medicine could be practiced, and I was rotating in breast oncology, so I was truly amazed about being a doctor and oncologist and being able to be certain that you are given the best chances to your patient, and have that confidence of telling your patient that you were given him or her the best opportunities in the world and the best chances. So yeah, that was why I actually decided and confirmed my aspirations to come here.
Nice. And so that was with Felipe in Arizona. And then did you come back later for more rotations?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And then in my 6th year, my last year of medical school, actually this year, from May until August, I did rotations in the U.S. as well. So I did 3 clerkships, one in Mayo, Arizona as well, the other one at Vanderbilt, and the last one at UPMC.
Wow, those are all amazing programs.
Yeah, it was truly
just give the audience a brief overview of how you were able to secure such fantastic clerkships.
Yeah, sure. At Mayo, Arizona, and at Vanderbilt, actually, I did some research with the attendings that received me. Yeah.
So you guys should do research. I keep telling you.
Yeah, everything is networking. And also at Mayo, Arizona, while I was doing my first observership, I looked for some attendings that were working in the areas that I was interested in, and I sent in an email, and also that's how I got other rotations. So yeah, it's all about doing research and making sure people know your skills and your worth, and then go for it and try to reach out to other people who can open opportunities for you.
But since you mentioned network and networking, people have this doubt on how they can do it effectively. You know, like you're in Brazil and someone's in Colombia or in India, and they want to network with people in the U.S. I think everyone would agree that it's important. But you've mentioned networking through research. Explain to us a little bit more in detail how that's possible. How did you connect with these people? Whether in the Meta-Analysis Academy or not, you know, I just want you to give that very sincere, transparent answer. And how is it that you're able to connect with these investigators, doctors in the U.S.?
Yeah, sure. So I think it all started from the Meta-Analysis Academy. So at the end of the course, you had that the experts team, and then I tried to enter in two groups, and I was fortunate to enter in those groups. It was Dr. Battaglini group and also Dr. Padron, who was here also.
Eduardo,
wow,
yeah. That's great. Wow, you lucked out.
Yeah, I was super lucky. Yeah, I was very lucky. And then they both are like such amazing mentors, and they are such great teachers, and they really they were amazing and really root for me. So I'm truly grateful for all of this community. And from that, we started doing meta-analysis, and then they also have research collaborators that were looking for students to help with projects, so they ended up matching interests. So I entered in other research groups, other projects, and actually something that was not a traditional way to enter in a research group. I have this story that when I was in Singapore
for ESC Asia.
Yeah, for ESC Asia. I was like touristing in the botanical gardens of Singapore, and then one lady asked me to take a picture of her because she was by herself as well. And then I took a picture of her, and then we started chatting. And I asked her, "Oh, do you want to go to the orchids part of the botanical gardens because it was so famous?" And then she was like, "Yeah, like let's go together." And then we started chatting, and she ended up being in Singapore because she was with her brother, who is a doctor in the U.S. here at BI, and he loved collaborating with international students. And then she was like, "Oh, you definitely should email my brother because he would love to collaborate with you." Yeah, and like I'm like 3 years from that, I'm still collaborating with this doctor.
Wow, you've been working with him this whole time.
Yeah, and actually now I'm here in Boston. I met him and went to his lab. He has a collaboration between MIT and Harvard.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I was in his lab just now, and we had dinner with all of his group, so it was really amazing.
But let's talk a little. That's such an interesting story. How you started this connection, but one point that is important to highlight here is besides you could call it a blessing, you can call it this situation, this unique situation, but the fact that you capitalized on it by showing up and adding value.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So certainly. You've contributed, whether with ideas, with your time, with your skills. So if you don't mind going one step further, which is like, what in the world have you been doing with this lab during these 3 years? I mean, you're a medical student, thousands of miles from here, from Boston, and you've been contributing. How have you been contributing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think since I learned so much at the Meta-Analysis Academy to do systematic reviews, meta-analysis, and you kind of get a really strong biostatistics basic knowledge. And then for you to expand to do other types of reviews, which is mainly what I've been doing, is really easy, I would say. Because once you know how to do the search strategy, how to do the systematic triaging of studies, and how to decide what the studies to include, what to exclude, and how to do the screening of information from the studies. So if you want to do other types of research, such as scoping reviews or scientometric reviews, it's much easier for you to understand how to do those. So this group from MIT Harvard, they are working on AI applications in medicine. So since I had this previous experience with reviews in general, I've started helping them with whatever they needed. So sometimes, for example, a resident from Beth Israel needed some help to do something, to do a systematic review, a scoping review, and then he connected me with them, and then I would help them with their projects. So yeah, that was super valuable. And once you have that basic knowledge, you can expand. So yeah. And
I just want to make a quick parenthesis here. It's basic because it's basic because you mastered it already. It's
that's true. Yeah.
There's nothing basic about doing
that's
really
totally
knowing how to do what Isabelle is describing is the step-by-step process that we teach in the Meta-Analysis Academy, which is how to do a systematic review and meta-analysis. And it's the foundation for you to do other types of reviews and studies as well. And it's really actually advanced skills. It's just that we start from the very basics, go all the way to these advanced skills. And once you have that, it serves as the foundation for you to go to other types of reviews and projects. That's awesome.
That's what I meant.
It's easy for her now to say, basic. 3 years ago, it wasn't so basic for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. So that's incredible. And you've made this connection. We talked about some mentors you've met in the Meta-Analysis Academy. And how important do you think were these connections, in the actual application itself? And again, there may be details you don't want to share. That's totally fine. But as much as you're able to share, these network help you to get papers and maybe even letters of recommendation, and maybe you got from some of these attendees you've worked with on research with them. But then at the time that you applied, how do you see either a direct or an indirect support or help from these connections?
Yes, absolutely. So as we were talking about before, first, it's really important for you to check all the boxes. So to have clinical experiences in the U.S., to have good enough scores in step 2, to try to have the minimum amount of red flags. And once your application has the most the most boxes that you can check, networking takes the huge part. So I would say once you have that application well-rounded, networking would be 70%, and the application well-rounded would be 30%. Because especially I think being an IMG, International Medical Graduate, people don't know you. Oh, who is this girl? Coming from Brazil? So once you are working with someone for years now, for example, for 3 years, 4 years, and they really know how you are committed to do everything that you said you would do, and that you work well, that you have the skills, they can advocate for you, and having that someone to advocate for you and to send an email to the program or call someone in the program to advocate for you, this just plays a very huge part that I didn't imagine how huge a part this would take. So yeah, definitely it is super important for you to build that trust, and you do that by bringing value, as you said. Yeah,
that's awesome. You gotta bring something to the table, and once you do, and people trust you, then it becomes you have the foundation to ask for help, or sometimes you don't even have to ask. Amazing, Isabele. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we've talked about the rotations. We've talked about the network. Let's actually talk about research in terms of results of publications. And you've mentioned multiple experiences. How many papers, generally speaking, in overall, an estimate, if you know the exact number, of course?
Yeah, I actually know because I just did my application. Yeah. So I actually have 13 published papers and one that I just submitted. And the greatest part of the papers are systematic reviews and meta-analysis.
Wow, most of them are systematic review and meta-analysis. Okay. Good. And just a rough estimate, you're first author on some of these?
Yes, I am. I'm first author in 5 publications.
That's perfect. That's amazing, because that's another point. You don't want to be co-author in 20 papers and not have any first author publications. It doesn't look good on your, it doesn't give you a good impression. It gives the impression that you're sort of like take advantage of just working a group and don't take leadership on any projects. So that's great. 5 first author papers and then 13 overall. And also these conference presentations, ESC Asia, San Antonio Breast Cancer, any other like major conferences?
Yes. So not that I personally presented, but for my team, we've presented in major conferences around the world. So ESC, so the European Society of Cardiology in Europe, also ACC here in the United States, also ENDO in the United States, the society SGIM for internal medicine. Yeah, so like most of the hugest conferences in the world and in the United States, yeah, we've presented it.
That's awesome. That's really great. And that's how you build a really great application. Can you give us a general sense of how you did on the steps? You passed step 1 on the first attempt, and then in step 2 you did super well, or?
Yeah, I would say I did well. I actually got a 258.
That's awesome.
Thank
Great
you.
score.
But I mean, I could have gotten a better score to make my application even more competitive. But I was doing my rotations at the time, and also
a bunch of research.
Yeah, a lot of research. So yeah, that's what I could get. But you definitely should try to get the highest score possible.
Yeah, but this brings up the point that I said in the beginning. Instead of having, let's say, a 270 on step 2 and then no research or no network or limited clinical experience, the applications that are most successful are the ones that are well balanced. The 258 is still well above average. And you have all the research, the network, the U.S. clinical experience, the great letters of recommendation. So that's it. That's what wins the game. It's a well-balanced application. How are interviews going?
They're actually going pretty well. So yeah, that's what they say, right? You have to schedule your interviews that are kind of the hardest place, that kind of the place that you want the most for later. So so you can kind of train and get used to the interviewing process. So in the beginning, it was kind of nerve-wracking to interview because you don't know what you're expecting. But yeah, the best interviews so far, I think, are the ones who you feel like you're just chatting with the person. Yeah. And yeah, it makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah. Are these mostly on Zoom still? Right?
Yeah, everything's on Zoom.
Yeah. I have mixed feelings on that. Obviously, it saves you a lot of money. When I was applying, you have to travel all over the U.S. for these interviews.
Yeah.
But that's good. And match is coming up in, I guess, 90 more days. It's exciting times. I guess you still have 3 months until match day.
That's true.
Good. Are the interviews going all the way into January, or?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Isabelle, I want to go back to building such a successful career, even besides the application itself. I want to just get a good sense of like who you are as a student, as a person, in sense of like commitment, dedication, how you balance your schedule, organization skills. Like, how do you get all this done as a medical student? Because again, I just want to remind everyone, Isabelle did all of this when she was still a medical student, because she graduated and boom, everything was ready. She graduated in August this year, and she's applying the same cycle. So all the 13 papers, the research, the networking, the international rotations, everything that she's mentioned, she's essentially done from 4th to 6th year in those 3 years, while she's still a medical student. In Brazil, you're an intern. Like those last 3 years, you work really hard. So how do you manage all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think you definitely could help me with that, because you manage so much more things than I do. But yeah, I think that you kind of have to decide what your priorities are and make them a priority, and all of the rest is the rest. So For example, once I did my first rotation in the U.S. and I decided that I wanted to pursue my residency training here, step one was my priority. So I was already doing some research, but and I had a hard time doing that and balancing it all because it's really hard. You want to do everything, but you kind of learn that you really have to prioritize what's most important. So once I decided to do step one, and for example, I decided that I want to do in 6 months, so I have to study 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day. So you really have to look look at your day and like, oh, for example, I commute 30 minutes to by bus to my university, so I can do Anki in the way to university, and then I just finished half of my Anki. So yeah, you really have to try to squeeze the things you have to do in your day, because it's not easy to be a medical student in Brazil and anywhere in the world. So
and still do all of that.
Yeah, and still do all of that. So yeah, I just think like prioritize what you need to do and do one step at a time, literally. So don't think a lot about like, oh, there are so many steps left for me to do. I have to do so much stuff. No, just take one step at a time and do your best. And eventually you will look back and be like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how I did that. But yeah. Actually, during an interview, if I may add, I was so emotional and so happy to be there that I actually started crying. Wow. Because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm here.
You've made it so far.
Yeah, I've made it so far. Yeah,
it's true. It is very rewarding. You know, you put in so much work and long nights, weekends, and to see, to start collecting, let's say, the benefits of all that hard work, and especially because it takes years, right? Mm-hmm. And there are rewards in the middle of the process too. You get a paper published, you pass step one, you get a good score in step two, you do a rotation. But ultimately, you're doing these building blocks to achieve a major goal, which is applying, interviewing, and match. So it is very accomplishing or rewarding. Mm-hmm. I like what you said about priority. I actually just posted this on Instagram by a coincidence today, or it's scheduled to go out. It's a saying that says, saying I don't have time is just a way of saying it's not a priority right now. Like I have other things that are more important.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, one thing I'd like to add about time, especially in the research component, is especially to educate the audience that doesn't know this yet, is that when you do say 13 publications, those aren't like 13 clinical trials. So that's one other thing that really helps, is that you're not doing the type of research that would take 3 years to get published, where you'd have to recruit patients and go to the ethics committee, get informed consent, review charts, those type of research, even though they're super important, they tend to take a long time, very time consuming. During secondary type of studies where you're doing meta-analysis, for example, even though you can get really high impact from these papers, you can also do it quite fast. In fact, on average, how long would it take you to do any of these systematic reviews and meta-analysis that you've published? Like how many weeks or months or?
Yeah, sure. I think it depends
on the project.
Yeah,
right?
on the project, and also how much time you have. So, but I think if I look back to all the projects that I done, approximately like 2 to 3 months, or a little bit more than that, depending on the.
It depends on how you count it too. If you count it until to publication, probably a little bit more, but until submission, probably a little bit less.
Definitely.
Yeah, but I mean it's super fast, right? And you're still doing this. You're not doing just research. You're studying for the steps, and you're doing medical school. So again, one other reason why going down the route of learning meta-analysis is very helpful. So we talked about this discipline or prioritizing things and figuring out what's important and really focusing. I like all those advices. What about in terms of hobbies? Like, what is it that you do when you're not studying for steps and publishing a meta-analysis?
And that's a great question. So, it's kind of hard to keep the hobbies I must be honest.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that is like non-negotiable is to do a physical exercise. So yeah, every day I was studying at a library, and when the library closed at 8 p.m., I would go directly to the gym and stay until 9 p.m. and then go to my house and like eat dinner and sleep.
Wow.
So this is something that I did every day, and it helps so much. And yeah, during all of these years, like just studying a lot and producing a lot, I did not burn out. So yeah, I actually burned out once in my life when I was during my third year of high school, studying for the vestibular, the SATs. But at that time I didn't do physical exercise. So I've learned that physical exercise is my escape. So yeah, it's something negotiable for me. So yeah, you definitely have to have something that makes you think not only about medicine, that makes you escape that kind of crazy routine. What about you, Anderson? What do you do?
I gotta confess too that over the last, I guess, ever since I started the Meta-Analysis Academy, that's when things turned downhill in terms of hobbies. I've been very successful with other things and very accomplished, but hobbies have sort of stayed aside. I do things like temporarily. I don't have a constant hobby that I do nonstop regardless. Like at times I'll join a soccer league. I even played with Eduardo a soccer league this last fall, and we played for 2 to 3 months. And then at times I'll pick up running again. I used to love running, and and I do these things from time to time. And then at some point I'll just read a book, but I don't read consistently throughout nonstop. So I like to read, I like to travel, and I like to do a lot of stuff, outdoor stuff. That includes both sports and hiking, stuff like that. Best trip I ever did was to Alaska, where I just went hiking everywhere. So that's what I like to do, but I just don't have like something consistent that I follow all the time. But I love your advice. I interviewed one of our other students the other day. Her name is Anna. She's from Minas, and she's like published a lot in genetics, and she's like run marathons or half marathons, half Ironmans, like really, really intense stuff. And she says the same thing, like exercise and physical activity keeps her mind healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. So Isabele, thank you for sharing this beautiful story. I'm really excited for the next steps. You're going to tell me where you match, of course.
Yeah, sure.
And we didn't talk about this, but really quickly, you're doing internal medicine, but then later on you want to do oncology, right?
Yeah, I want to do hem-onc. So
and you've published a lot, and you've presented at Breast Cancer Symposium, San Antonio. What drives you to oncology? Let's end with that question.
Yeah, sure. So I think the main reason why I chose oncology is actually because of Dr. Battaglini. Yeah, because...
You could have said cardiology because of Dr. Cardoso.
Yeah, sorry. If I did a rotation with you, maybe I would have chosen cardiology.
No, it's amazing. And oncology is awesome, of course. I'm just joking.
Yeah, because once I was at Mayo, I was just like amazed by the quality of the oncology care, of the cancer care. So and he's such an inspiration as a physician, as a person, and also as a researcher. And oncology is a lot for, I think, like people who really like research and likes to go to conferences. Yeah, and the United States is the perfect place to do that.
Yeah, I got to confess that there's more research and innovation and money as a consequence in oncology these days than cardiology. The oncology is just booming with like very advanced and personalized therapies, and the research in oncology is fantastic. Well, there we go. Dr. Miyawaki, future oncologist, soon to be an internal medicine resident in the United States, superstar alum of the Meta-Analysis Academy. Thank you so much for joining, Isabele.
Thank you so much, Anderson, for this, and thank you for watching, guys.
All right, guys. So if you want to hear more successful stories like Isabele's, make sure to tune in to the other episodes. If you want to learn how to publish these great papers, make the networking, make sure to join the Meta-Analysis Academy. We'll leave the wait list here below, okay? Check out our social media as well. If you have any questions, you can send me a direct message in my Instagram at metaanalysis.academy. Great to have you guys here. Thank you, Isabele, for joining. Bye-bye.
Thank you.